Welcome to the Joe Moglia Podcast, featuring Hall of Fame football coach and world-renowned business leader, Joe Moglia. Let's join the host of the Joe Moglia Podcast, Jamie King.
Thank you very much, Mike Kelly, and welcome back, everybody. It's time again for the Joe Moglia Podcast. And without further ado, it's Joe time. That's going to be like Michael Buffer one of these days. I love it. Maybe I can get Michael Buffer on the show to do that just one time. Coach, how you been? I know you've been traveling with family. Where'd you go? How did it go? Tell us about your travels.
I think, Jamie, every other year we have an extended family vacation. If you recall, a couple of years ago, it was important for me, for my family, my children, my grandchildren, to know where the heritage is from. So we visited Ireland and Italy. We found out there that my dad never finished second grade. We found out there that my grandfather on the Irish side couldn't read or write, signed his name with an X. And it really hit me. And hopefully the children appreciated that, my family was a generation away from poverty and illiteracy. So to kind of think of where we are today and how fortunate we are today, live in the country we live in, makes me really very, very proud. This year, usually in the summertime, we do travel north, but this year we went to Sea Island, Georgia. Now, it was really spectacular and beautiful, but it was also Georgia, in the middle of July when it was like 95 degrees and quite humid. But we had a lovely time as we normally do. So I'm happy to get back, but these are always great memories.
Coach, nobody loves their family like you do. And of course, you guys had such great times, even in the heat. Probably reminded you of summer football, but I've got to ask you this.
I never liked summer football.
Yeah, you never liked, I don't think any of us like summer football, but I have to ask you this. Does it ever, do you really, because I know you don't look back too much, you try to look always forward. You said a generation away from poverty. When you sit there and think about that for a minute, let it resonate and really waft over you and think about what you've done in this miraculous journey. It's so incredible. We can't wait for the book and the movie. We know that. But you just said something, a generation away from having nothing to being a leader of one of the biggest companies and selling it for an amazing amount of money and having the career you've had, fields named after you, Hall of Fames, everything under the sun, to do what you've done. I know you can't do too many victory laps, but man, you got to look and say, hey, Joe from the neighborhood, not too bad, my man.
I think the word I think I would use today to describe how I feel, and probably been true for close to a decade, is just overwhelmed with gratitude. And I know exactly where I came from, and I know what we've been able to do and get done, and how many people get a chance to have two careers that they're pretty good at, that they really, really love. Well, I've had that opportunity, and I'm overwhelmed with gratitude because of that.
You've always thanked others. You've always thanked the team, no matter where, as a coach or as a business leader. But something I don't think I've ever asked you directly, has your success ever surprised you? You knew you were going to do something. You were hell bent to achieve and show that you could overcome the stuttering and all the great things you've done. But where you're at now, did you ever think you would reach these lofty levels, or is this beyond what you? And that's something I've never asked you, so I've always wondered that.
Well, when I was in 8th grade and I wasn't allowed to graduate with my grammar school because I got in trouble because I was caught drinking, I wasn't thinking about it then. Now, when I was working in my father's fruit store, I wasn't thinking about it then. And I don't think I ever really projected too far down the road. But I think an important part of me from early on was always, I think I was always a pretty good leader. And I think always the idea of responsibility and accountability was always very important to me. How I treated others was always very important to me. And then part of that was try to be the best you can be. So I've lived my life that way. So I wasn't thinking, if I'm the best I could be, I'm going to be this good, or we're going to win this many games, or we're going to make this much money. We're going to grow our market share, or we're going to have an impact on other people's lives. It was just kind of like, it was always sort of a 3-year plan, and what do we need to do today to kind of get there? So I never really thought too far down the road, but as long as I felt good about kind of the effort I was giving at that moment in time and knew I was giving it my best, I felt pretty good with regardless of what the outcome was.
All right. Want to get to some of the top stories out there, starting with world events. Uh, Coach Benjamin Netanyahu rejected President Trump's Gaza deal, saying Israel will not withdraw. Now, when you have an ally saying we're not going to withdraw, no matter what your plans are, we're an ally. We're supposed to kind of be in lockstep. And he says, no, we're not backing down. We're not going to do this. We're not going to do. Very precarious position. Your thoughts on this kind of hardline stance from Netanyahu, and what should the president do, or what do you think he may do?
I think the president very much knows how critical Israel is to us and our relationship and what's going on in the Middle East. Netanyahu obviously knows how important the United States is to the success of Israel and our partnership there that has gone back many, many generations. At the end of the day, their jobs are a little bit different. President Trump wants to be able to achieve a total denuclearization of what exists in Iran. Israel would want to do the same thing. But the United States, while we are prone to the escapades of terrorism, Israel sees that on a very regular basis. And Netanyahu's job is to do what he believes is the right thing for Israel. Our president's job is to do the right thing he believes for the United States. They don't always necessarily jive. If they're at a point, though, where they can bring an end to this, I'm sure they'll both work together to be able to do that. But at the end of the day, our president's got one job, Netanyahu's got the other job, and I think you're supposed to respect each to do their job. And the fact that they don't necessarily agree, that's not the end of the world, because in real life, not everybody agrees anyway.
Right. Fans of the Joe Moglia show and podcast through the years know that Joe's always talked about the geopolitical aspects being something that's always concerned him, and he always keeps his eyes on that. Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Pakistan signed a new defense pact in Mecca, while everybody else is, celebrating the World Cup and so forth. These guys got together, formed this pact, and basically the question is, with three major Muslim majority nations, one a longtime U.S. ally, one a NATO member in Turkey, and one a nuclear power, all get together and basically say, we're going to kind of try to reshape things. What does that mean for us? What are your thoughts as far as them getting together and trying to do their own thing in the region?
I think their ability to be able to get together. Remember now, Iran and the Houthis and different things that are going on there, they're attacking other places in the Middle East. So I think with the attention on the United States and our bringing military forces there, and the significance of the battles between Israel and Iran, this is a good opportunity, I think, for them to be able to say, we better wake up. We don't know what the world's going to look like 5 years from now,
right.
but it's in our best interest to pool our resources and come together so we have our best interest at heart. I think the timing for that right now is probably advantageous, and it's probably a smart thing to do.
One thing you've always, in terms of your business acumen, you've always been able to kind of be ahead of the curve in pretty much everything you've done. When I saw this story, I wanted your opinion right away. Meta has been hit with a $400 million penalty for endangering children online. A New Mexico judge ruled this week that Meta created a public nuisance and endangered children on Facebook, Instagram, penalizing the company $400 million. Now, of course, they're going to appeal. But boy, this was a shot heard around of course, the world of all the people in that space saying, you better watch what you're doing because they're not fooling around. Your thoughts on this ruling and what it means for the industry?
Now, the reality is I don't know to what extent Meta would be guilty of this. Meta certainly says that they would never do anything like that. They've always tried to defend children or protect them, et cetera. But I want to put in perspective. When you say in the world, Jamie, somebody's been fined $400 million, that's an incredible amount of money. But when you put it in perspective for Meta and the hyperscalers, that's literally like suing you for $10. That $400 million is irrelevant to them.
Right.
Now, they still want to be able to do, they don't want a brand that doesn't protect children. So I'm sure that, but I don't know to what extent they have guilt here or not. And also a lot of times when politicians come after you, they've got ulterior motives as well. So I don't know the story well enough to have a strong opinion on that. But $400 million is nothing to Meta. but the brand's a lot to them, and they're not going to want to do anything to jeopardize the brand. And not doing a good job of trying to protect children would be one way to be able to do that. And I'm sure they'll figure it out.
Your thoughts on the war? We've talked about this at length. The Strait of Hormuz, a deal. Coach, this drives me crazy. I mean, 1 minute it's open, it's closed, it's open. He said that, but they said this, and who's on first? Coach, I don't know. It's so crazy that every time the president puts something out, it's starting to sound like the boy who cried wolf, because it's like over and over and over. His intentions are great, but who's he dealing with, and who's saying yes, who's saying no? They're saying there's no deal. They're saying we're not going to do this. We want reparations. We want this. We want that. You better do what we say, or no deal. I mean, they're not really in a position to do this, but hey, they're bluffing or trying to. It's one hell of a bluff if they don't get it right. And then at what point does Trump say, okay, this is it, let's end? What's going to happen, Coach? How will this finally end in your vision?
We go back to the beginning. Remember, we've said this before, that at the end of the day, until something is actually finalized, we're not going to know. So right now, the end is very, very much in doubt. I've said before that the radical part of the Iran, the radical piece of Iran, hates us, says death to Americans. Believes they're going to be rewarded in the afterlife if indeed they do something to hurt us, hurt the infidels, the Americans. They're not our fan. They don't like us. And there's no way they're going to beat the United States. So one way to be able to hurt us is prolong this, act like we're in negotiations, not necessarily be. And if they can drive oil up to $125 a barrel and leave that there for three months or so, 4 or 5 months, we're going to have a global recession. That will hurt the United States significantly, as well as the rest of the developed countries around the world. It'll hurt Iran less. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's their ultimate objective. I think with regard to the president, this is not new for the president to say one thing that may not be exactly correct, and then something else might be reality. So from the very, very beginning, he looks at himself as a world-class negotiator. He's coming in with a hard ball. He's attacking them. He's taking out their weapons. And he says, we've destroyed the military. Well, somehow they still find missiles to shoot at us and others. They still can keep the strait closed. They still seem to have an awful lot of power, and we keep acting like they have nothing left. So I think the president's objective is the true and right objective. His message to the world has not always been accurate, and he overly relies on incredible optimism and hyperbole to be able to make his point. So he will look as a hero to the entire planet that we get this thing all fixed. He wants to do that as soon as possible. But he's calling victory in the beginning. He was calling victory in the beginning of the first quarter, not with 10 seconds left. And sometimes you don't know you have victory wrapped up if there's still 10 seconds left. And so I think we can't necessarily believe what the president says because he's being overly optimistic. And I think in the real world, we won't know it's over until it's actually over and everything's signed, sealed, delivered.
One final question regarding the war. Iran has shoveled its top security post in the midst of the Hormuz negotiations. Iran quietly shoveled its top security leadership this past week in a move that analysts say signals internal power struggles. So when you do that, when a government in the middle of war negotiations suddenly changes its top security folks, what does that mean in terms of making a deal likely or less likely with the new group? We really don't know, because I don't even know if the White House knows who they're dealing with. It seems like you think you do, but then somebody else pulls the rug out from under you. So what does this mean? Kind of a last-minute change here in the Straits.
Whenever something as significant as this happens in the middle of real serious stress, there's usually one of two things that have gone wrong. A, the person's not getting the job done, or B, there's a significant conflict in philosophy between that person and their job and their boss's perspective. And if the person's not doing the job, or there's a real conflict, frankly, the best thing to do is as soon as possible, see if we can get it wrapped up and move on. Now, we don't know exactly what the story is behind the scenes. We don't know what that is.
Right.
and maybe one day we'll find out, but we don't know right now. But if one of my key people in a critical situation weren't doing their job, or in a critical situation, we were so philosophically opposed I could no longer trust the person, I'd make a tough decision as well. Now, if you're going to make a tough decision like that, you got to be ready to replace that person or take over yourself. So I don't think any of us know today. Maybe one day we'll find out, but any of us know today exactly what happened there.
Your thoughts, NVIDIA moving to the Finance of Stocks feature on our show. This portion of NVIDIA being mentioned, $5.4 trillion market cap, the most valuable company in history. You hear this last week at $219 a share with a market capitalization of $5.4 trillion. There's that word again, making it the most valuable company in the world today, potentially the most valuable company in the history of capitalism. Brown Advisory just opened a position in NVIDIA, citing its role as a central pillar of the entire AI infrastructure economy. And if you watch American businesses for 5 decades, has any company like this ever held your attention in terms of what is done and the way it's done it?
Well, I think it's all relative. I think we go back to the 90s. A lot of people felt Jeff Bezos and Amazon would never be able to make it. And how can you possibly not go to the store today? Think about how Amazon is part of everybody's life today. Go back 40, 50, 60 years, about 70 years, the credit card. You got to pay everything with cash. Oh, now we got a credit card. You actually trust that that's really going to work. We're in the world of AI today, and there are 7 companies. Well, many companies are significant players in this, but the 7 are the major, the Mag 7, the hyperscalers. And while as great as NVIDIA is, they're not the only ones in that position. As you know, I'm a believer in NVIDIA. I own NVIDIA. And I think Jensen Huang is an exceptional executive with an exceptional vision. Musk has something similar, but he doesn't handle himself well necessarily in front of a camera from a social perspective. Huang is as polished as can be, and he's great in front of the camera, and he's very, very comfortable with people. These examples have existed before. Just everything's different on a relative basis. There was a time, it was 50, 60 years ago, when General Motors was by far the largest automobile company in the globe, by far. Right. Well, that's not the case today. You look at what takes place internationally, Japan, other places. So I take my hat off to what NVIDIA has done. There are other companies, though, that have done great jobs as well. And this idea of AI is very, very much part of what our future is going to be. And NVIDIA has certainly done a great job with regard to that, but they're not the only ones. Right. But there are many that have been exceptional. Certainly NVIDIA is one of those, and I've been invested with them for quite a while.
From the very beginning, you've been so bullish on AI. You've told people about it, and you've been out front with it. So thank you for that. And you have a position in NVIDIA.
Yes.
Yeah, guess who doesn't of the two of us have a position in NVIDIA?
You would think maybe if you listened to me once over the span of the last 5 years, maybe you would have bought 10 shares or something. It's
not the listening, Coach. It's
10 shares. 10 shares 5 years ago, you would have been able to swing that.
5. Now, folks, did you hear what he said? 10 years ago, 5 shares.
5 years ago.
Or 5 years ago. 5 years 10 shares. Probably been better for me 10 years ago, but 5 years ago, 10 shares. I might
probably cost you a couple grand. Today, you're probably worth $75,000. So maybe you should listen more often. Coach, I would have loaned you the 10 grand, Jamie.
Coach, you could always diversify a little NVIDIA my way. I will never complain about NVIDIA. The haves and the have-nots, folks. This is what this show's all about. It's kind of to show you who is the man. This guy, NVIDIA, AI, he's there. Another guy that's a friend of yours, Berkshire Hathaway, of course, Warren Buffett, the report earnings this week. How much do you pay attention to this? I know he's your friend. I know you watch him. I know he's kind of a barometer. I'm sure you have a position there too. But what, in terms of Warren Buffett, yeah, you're smiling, so I know you do. What, in terms of Warren Buffett and your relationship, does he ever give you like advice? Hey, Joe, you might want to look here. Or hey, Joe, think about this. Or do you kind of look at his report and take it in totality and try to glean something from it.
There was a time when I lived in Omaha that Warren and I got together. We had dinner every quarter, and
Warren, Warren and I. Yeah, yeah.
Warren and I had dinner
Yeah.
every quarter, but even then he wouldn't suggest what I should be doing, what I should get involved with, and we would talk about sort of different things going on in the business world, not necessarily stuff going on in Berkshire. Sometimes I talk about something maybe if I felt I had a problem in Ameritrade. But keep in mind, Jamie, Warren announced a year ago that he was stepping down.
Yeah.
I know he's in his 90s, and they've been planning for success. They've had a succession plan in place for the last maybe close to 10 years now. And Greg Abel's the guy that has taken over, and he's doing a good job. And his perspective will be different than what Warren's is. But they became part of the same company because they were very philosophically on the same page. So there will be changes, as should be the case, over time at Berkshire Hathaway. But Warren's not making those decisions now. He's still there, and he's still revered. He still goes into work, and he still has his office. But he's not the one making those decisions right now.
I've got to ask you this, and I hope he lives forever. And this is a legacy question, but not about the life so much. But when you put everything in totality on the business world and the way he's affected people all over the world, what do you think when you talk about a Warren Buffett, the things that really come to you right away in terms of the man?
I think he's a really good, solid human being. He's got a great sense of humor. He picked. I mentioned a couple times, right, that I was so fortunate to do two things in my life that I was really pretty good at, and I absolutely love. Is he could have done a lot of different things, but there's one thing he really, really loved, and that's investing and the world of investing. And he devoted his entire life to that. He loved every minute of it. He didn't step down till a year ago. He's in his mid-90s. And think of the success that he's had. But he would say the same thing. Find something that you have the skill sets for and that you love doing, and you're never going to go wrong. And certainly he would be the epitome of that.
All right. What a great man. We did find out that Intel's $15 billion stock offering dropped 4% this week after announcing a $15 billion stock offering, which is a massive dilution of existing shareholders. Your thoughts on this and traditional stock taking a hit? What did you think when you saw that?
Now, I'm aware that they did this, and obviously the stock's going to take a little bit of a hit, so that's not necessarily a surprise. But I think I'm not positive what they're using the money for. I think they're using the proceeds for AI development, but I'm not positive of that. But let's assume they are. If they're doing a good job of making decisions, that's a long-term capital play. If they're making the right decisions now, that $15 billion will be allocated to areas that they feel are going to help them grow their company. If that's the case, then the shareholders, while being diluted today, will be better off down the road. They will own a smaller piece, but of a larger, more successful company. So I'm assuming that the board and the leadership at Intel knows what they're doing with that, and I'd give them credit for that, but we won't know for a while.
Coach, the bottom line question everybody watching tonight wants to know: the Dow's at 54,000. NVIDIA is worth more than $5 trillion. SpaceX just stumbled. The Strait of Hormuz might open or might not. The Fed is on hold. Netanyahu just blew up a Middle East peace deal. Berkshire reports this week as we head into September and October, historically the most volatile months of the market year. What is your single most important piece of advice for people watching home with a retirement account and their investing possibilities? What would you say now in terms of these next few months?
I was just having a conversation with my friend Blake about this literally yesterday.
Okay.
And I talked to my sons about this also while we were kind of on vacation. And the market, there's certain parts of the market are not doing great. Like crypto has not done well lately. But we're in a period of significant geopolitical stress. We don't know what's going to happen with that. I outlined a few minutes ago, if oil winds up $125 a barrel and stays there for a while, that's a very, very serious problem, Jamie. So I think you want to be invested in the stuff that you believe in. I think you should be invested in technology. I think here you should at least have a position with regard to crypto. I think financials are a good thing to be able to be invested in now. If you're not invested in AI, you're kind of missing the boat. But look at AI almost as a separate piece from the technology. And I think you should be invested. Having said that, I wouldn't use cash. I wouldn't put cash in the market while it's near it or at its highs. I'd wait for a correction.
Right.
And I never forget, I will never forget, I should never forget that there's some serious geopolitical stress going on in the world today, the likes of which we've not seen probably in our lifetime. So you need to be aware of that. So long term, I'm bullish, but I would trim into strength, and I would not just push my cash into the market in names that are near around their highs.
All right. Great advice. And we now turn to the sports page with Coach Joe Moglia. The major trade heard around the world in baseball, Tariq Skubal, one of the most dominant left-handers in baseball, doesn't go anywhere but to the Los Angeles Dodgers, who already have like 5 Cy Young pitchers on their team. They've got to start a game, you got Shohei Ohtani, arguably the greatest player to ever play. Freddie Freeman, an NL MVP. Mookie Betts, an NL MVP. Talk about an embarrassment of riches. And then they get arguably the best left-hander. Your thoughts on that? And should we just go ahead and start engraving the name of the world champions for the 3rd time, the Dodgers? Or your thoughts on what happened and if the Dodgers are going to win again?
Well, we still have 40% of the season to go, number one. Number two, remember, when you make a trade, there's the name people, the name players, right, that everybody's aware of. But usually there are other reasons for that. So I like to think that the respective teams know better than somebody else does what they have in the lineup, what they have coming up through the minor leagues, what they have going on. And they're making a decision that's not just the season, but it's, more of a longer-term play. I've always liked the Dodgers, not as much as the Yankees, but I've always liked the Dodgers. And the Dodgers look like certainly the team to beat right now in baseball. But we've got 40% of the season to go. It's just the beginning of August. Let's see how August finishes. Let's see where we are at the end of September. And it has to be that.
Okay. Coach, everywhere I go, people say, what does Coach think about this year's Chanticleer team? We got a new coach, new excitement. We know it's going to be buzzing in Conway. Everybody's getting fired up for the regular season. Is this team, from a distance, as you watch and look and pay attention to the goings and comings and goings on of what's happening, do you say special group? Do you say they could be really good? They're a good team. They could be a great. Where do you come in right now based on what you've seen so far, what you're hearing? How rock solid this coach seems really special, and you guys have a great hire. Your thoughts on this year's Chanticleer edition?
I have really good. I like Coach Beard a lot. I've gotten to know him a little bit, and I have spent time with the team during spring practice. I like what I saw on the field. I like his approach to what's going on. He and I have had a chance to talk quite a bit. He feels really good from a portal perspective that we didn't lose anybody we really, really wanted to keep, and we're able to get some good people off that. I think a key going into a first year with a lot of new players, most of the team is new, the whole staff new. When you want to be able, you lose games by making mistakes. So you want to keep it as simple as possible. I'm obsessed with that. There's no reason to make mistakes, but we make mistakes for silly reasons. We don't communicate as well. We're not willing to check the box. But once you get a culture down to eliminate those mistakes, that really winds up going a long way. For a new staff and a new team and a new program with new players, you want to keep it as simple as possible. I have a lot of respect for Ryan. I like to think he'll do that. We'll have a great test when we open up against Mike Benson's team, our previous president of West Virginia. And then, by the way, then the next week, our opening night here is against Fordham University. So I'm rooting for our guys. I like them. I have good feelings about them. I'm sure we'll be underdogs going to West Virginia, but I wouldn't be surprised if we come away with a win.
That's awesome. We're very excited. And when you look at the college landscape, I know we've talked about it before. It's that time of year where you usually have that whistle on and you're doing your thing. And do you still wake up sometime and you're like, man, gosh, I know you don't miss those long hours of film and all the headaches, but you love those games, Coach. I mean, because I'm the same way. As a coach, I practice, I could deal with that. But give me that game day. Give me that excitement. Give me that competitive aspect. I mean, what do you miss the most? The camaraderie, the coaches?
I miss all of it. But what I don't miss is that when I wake up 5 o'clock in the morning It's not because I got to get dressed, because I got to go to a meeting, I got to go on the field, I got to go to practice, because I got to go to the bathroom. Okay. And then it's 11 o'clock at night. I'm not just leaving the office. I'm watching one of your shows on TV, or I'm watching Lioness, or I'm watching one of the shows on TV. So I don't miss the responsibility associated with running a program. I've taken responsibility for things since all my life, and I'm proud of what I've been able to do. But if I wasn't ready to step down, Jamie, I would have stepped down. I would have continued to coach. But it was time for me. It was time to help with the succession of Jamie Chow all the time, and do everything we can to kind of help our program. I'm still executive advisor, our president, and I still care about everything we got going on. And I'm our biggest fan. But I don't miss the 80 hours a week.
No.
5 months, no days off.
Well, when you look at this year on the NFL side, I know it's way too early, but have you heard anything or seen anything? Is there one team kind of buzzing out there? You said keep your eye on that group. Is there anybody you've paid attention to yet, or you kind of wait until the preseason gets going?
I think we got to wait till preseason gets going. We got to wait till probably the first few games of the season get going.
But the dark clouds are lifting, Coach. Football's back. It's the best
Football's
part.
back.
Yes.
Football's back. Yeah. Football's
Hey, I spoke to a lady named Dolores, and we were talking about how back in the 70s and 80s and how things seemed so much better and slower, and there weren't the computers and the kids going through the issues and all. I was telling her about your BAM philosophy and all that. And one of the things she said was, that sounds like a book of character, of confidence, of discipline, of purpose. She said, has he ever thought about doing that in like a smaller version for kids? Because we've heard nationwide reading scores are awful, math and all the different categories going down in so many states that maybe a program like BAM that has been so tried and true, maybe on a kid's level to where it's got maybe a coloring book to it and a message with it. I'm just saying, Coach, this was a conversation I had, and I thought, well, heck, for my 10% that I get, I figured I might pitch it your way. Your thought on a BAM kids book?
I don't think I'd be able, as a coach, I know I was a pretty good coach. I don't know if I would have been a good coach of like six-year-old kids or 7 or 8. I don't think I would have been a great, little league coach or pee-wee coach. I don't know if I would have had the patience. Patience is a critical part of the job, but I don't know if I would have had the patience for that. And but there's going to be a book. It's going to be on leadership. It's going to be published in the first quarter of 2027.
First quarter 2027. We cannot wait.
That's correct. And while it doesn't necessarily address small kids, well, it does address leadership. And what part of leadership is it parents, how you raise your kids. So there are ways. So BAM, standing on 2 feet, take responsibility for yourself, treat others the way you want to be treated yourself, and live the consequences of your actions. Well, if my child's 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, and I find that he's not treating his brother or sister or somebody else or somebody at school with respect, well, that's a conversation we're supposed to have. That's not okay. There's no reason why we can't give him some responsibility. For example, is it too much to ask when you're finished? You're 7 years old. You can pick up your plate. You can bring it to the sink. Can you do that? Is it reasonable to say that when you go to the bathroom, you make sure that if you made a mess, you clean it up, or the sink's clean up? There's plenty of responsibility you can give a child at certain ages, but it doesn't work if you don't hold a child accountable. It doesn't work if it's okay, if there are no consequences. It's okay to treat others with dignity and respect. You can tell that by the way how they speak about somebody at dinner. So it's not necessarily as effective for a kid as it is for the parents of the kid to implement that, because it does work.
I think she was just trying to say, hey, maybe on a smaller level with some of the core principles for little kids, they could get that as kind of a guiding principle. And I was like, I see what you're saying, but it is meant for the bigger kids, and of course.
But they can relate that to the smaller kids.
Absolutely.
So what you should tell Dolores that maybe she should write that book.
So much going on. Where are you at? Best advice of the week. You got so much to pick from. What's your call tonight?
I think I would go back to one of your original questions early on, was we don't know exactly where the Iranian crisis stands and where we stand relative to that. But that's been going on 4 or 5 months now, when we thought it was going to be over within a week or so. Lives are being lost. It's got to come to an end. Hopefully it comes to an end sooner rather than later. Hopefully a decade from now, everything that took place now is the right thing. I would simply say, I think, as far as our viewers and our listeners go, every now and again, maybe it makes sense to kind of just say a prayer. And we're talking about some of the most significant things going on. This is going to affect the history of mankind, not just the United States. So to maybe say a prayer for the respective leaders in Iran, the leaders in Israel, the leaders for our country, that we at least do what we believe is the right thing to do, and politics don't enter into this. And this is something we kind of need to get behind us, and it's already been going on too long. My biggest fear is going to be going on a year from now, and I pray that doesn't happen.
Oh, we all pray that, Coach. We certainly do. Folks, to learn more about one of the greatest business leaders and one of the greatest football coaches, there's been, I call him the unicorn for a reason. Nobody's like this. You can say, well, I remember this guy was a great coach, or I remember a guy was a great businessman. Look, folks, the book's coming out, the movie's coming out. I cannot wait. Got the popcorn, going to get the family lined up. We're going to head out and watch the Joe Moglia story. We cannot wait for that to happen. And the book is going to be phenomenal as well. Remember, to learn more about Joe and all of his, of course, appearances, CNBC, you got anything planned there?
No, I don't.
Okay, but also the Forbes magazine, you've got those articles coming out. They've been phenomenal. Of course, folks, don't miss that. But you can go to moglia.com, Moglia.com for all the details. Coach, thanks for joining us again. Blessings to you and your family. Have a great week ahead, and we'll see you next time on the Joe Moglia Podcast.
All the best, Jamie. Take care, everybody.
That's it, folks. Have a great night. We'll see you next time on the Joe Moglia Podcast.
Thank you for joining us for another edition of the Joe Moglia Podcast. Reminding you to learn more about Joe by going to the sensational Joe Moglia website at Moglia.com. That's Moglia.com. That's Moglia.com. When you visit the website, you'll be able to learn more about Joe's schedule of appearances on CNBC, as well as other speaking and television appearances. You can also read all of Joe's incredible articles featured in Forbes magazine. For Hall of Fame coach Joe Moglia, producer-director Rob Matea, and Joe Moglia podcast host Jamie King,